We're live. Let's wait a few minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna kick this off. Carla, you settled?
We have 13 participants already.
Well, we have like 300 actually, Sergio. What are you talking about? So, big welcome to everyone who's tuning in. I'm Rossella, one half of the Malta Creative Collective, and Carla, who you can all see, is the other half, waving there. Big thanks to everyone joining us from both in Malta and outside of Malta. The whole purpose really of us bringing this together was to take our creative gatherings, which have been running now for, well, a couple of years, virtually. Obviously, first time we're running this online, so hope you can all see us. We're joined by a few members of the panel that form part of the Creative Collective. So we have Andrew Farrugia and Simon. Where is Simon? Oh, there he is. I've lost you for a second. Right in the center. Simon from fit-Tazza. Then we have Gioia from, well, one half of Jewellery, Arts and Design, and Sergio Muscat, creative and photographer, and, well, just big creative. And then we've got Passy and Steve from A Collective, so architecture studio. The purpose really of us all coming together, well, Carla, do you want to take over and give us a little bit of an outline as to why we're doing this, and not just to entertain everyone whilst we're here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think these are pretty much the most uncertain times for us, not just creative businesses, I think any businesses, but it's also a time for our community to get stronger in this industry. So we thought, let's get together online, let's follow the virtual trend that's going around at the moment to keep connected and to share our ideas and perspectives of what's going on in our industry and how is it going to grow, what's going to happen. So we're not gathering to talk about COVID-19 and share anxious news stories, but to really talk about, well, quickly talk about, because we have put a time limit to this, on how our businesses are doing in these times and the future for them.
Yes, I think now more than ever, the most important thing we can do as creatives and as humans is to share our experiences and really just use those experiences that we're sharing to inspire each other and ultimately uplift each other, because I mean, they're not very easy times and there's a lot of anxiety going around, not just in the creative sectors and scene generally, but across the island. So we hope to be a little bit of a positive and optimistic light in all of this. So as you may have read in the event description, we will be answering 3 specific questions this evening. It'll be a very short 45-minute chat with questions that can be answered after each question that we are going to be asking the individual panelists that are joining us here tonight. So we're going to kick off with the first question, which Andrew and Simon are going to be sort of sharing with us. So Andrew, Simon from fit-Tazza, how are you guys adjusting to the current local and global situation with your business?
Well, the first thing is understanding our plans, how they started before all this kicked off, basically. Because the idea this year was to open a new shop in Valletta in the 1st of May, and we were on that fast train to get stuff done, basically. Obviously, it was a bit surreal to be actually chatting with Simon and with Craig to close the office and the Slima shop, while at the same time being on site and off site planning the new shop. So I think there is where we were lucky that we decided to close the shops kind of before everyone, before it became mandatory. So that kind of gave us a clear picture. We had those 2 days of panic when everyone was seeing if they're going to open or work remotely. But we did have those 2 days of panic where it's like, what are we going to do? I think one of the main thing that helped us a lot was to trust in our process. I think the best decision we took in this situation was to literally look at how we usually tackle all these major projects, how we're tackling the new shop, for example, and just adjust the deadlines, the long term, the short term, kind of the parameters that were forced on us. And what we did was focus on the 3 things that I think were essential in our opinion, which was obviously take decision about the new shop. Do you pull the plug? Do you keep going? What's the forecast? And after many discussions, we decided that this is not the right time to pull out of the investment. So this is something that we're going ahead. But it allowed us as well to realistically not need to push for the May deadline, because opening 1st of May is not really now a priority. Understand how our employees, our audience, our shop, our office, all those have kind of, before we had an operation that runs smoothly, and now we're all working from home, kind of shops closed. You need to look at that. You can't ignore it. So you need to discuss that. And how to connect with our audience, where before we were settled that there's a good number of people discovering what we have to offer through our retail shop and through us being present and open. Now, unless we're pushing something online, unless we're focusing on connecting with our audience, we were gonna miss connecting with the people that ultimately we need to connect to. So we focus on those 3 things, on those 3 parameters. Obviously, this time Simon played a really big role. In fact, he's gonna go through. While usually we focus more on the creative and we create a space where the creative can really flourish without any parameters, over here we said, okay, let's focus with connecting our audience. Let's focus on doing creative work. But obviously the parameters in the short term right now need to be surviving commercially, where before you can allow yourself to not focus on certain things, the day-to-day operations became really, really valuable. So Simon took the lead on this, so that every scenario we kind of planned out, there was a good answer commercially as well, because ultimately it's important to survive at this point. Simon, you want to go through it since we trusted you anyway?
Yeah.
Oh.
Basically, just tying into what Andrew was saying, it's first of all recognizing that we need to stay true, like he said, to what our process is. So we don't change according to the environment that is thrown upon us. We have certain processes, certain systems that we try to stay true to, but at the same time, not adapting to the situation and not recognizing that this tsunami came in your face is also not an option. So we obviously tried to find the right balance between that. Also, personally, all 3 of us at the fit-Tazza, every time we had issues, our way of dealing with it is to face it head on. And I mean, this was no different. The main way that I would say we adjusted was through planning. And when we came up to planning, the first thing that was the hardest challenge was the uncertainty. I still remember that the first time that we met to discuss whether we should close or not, I was actually saying, but if this is a 1 week time, like a 2 week issue, it should be fine. Like, guys, that's not, but it became quite clear quite soon that it was not the case. But at the same time, even today, one of the main issues is that people don't know till when this situation is going on. And to try and tackle this, I mean, we did what we usually budget for a year. This time we decided, hey, considering the uncertainty, we're going to do 3 budgets with 3 timelines, trying to be ready for whatever situation. And also we tried to come up with dates when we say, hey, we decided 2 months ago that by this time this should have happened. If it didn't, we need to take decisions today. So this way, we're not stressing every day, me, Andrew, and Craig, oh my God, should we take the decision today or tomorrow or 3 days from now? And I feel like that helped us also on a personal level ease a bit of the stress because we kind of know what we need to do going forward. At the same time, we tried not to overreact. So like income has been obviously for everyone, I think, in the creative industry negatively impacted massively. But it also came up with its opportunities. There were collaborations that we were maybe thinking we're going to do later this year or beginning of the next because of the new shop that I'm very happy that we decided to keep, that now we're going to work on, and certain campaigns, certain focuses on online shop, certain things that we never had the actual time to prioritize. I mean, it was an opportunity to do so. Like every plan, there's also obviously the budgeting side. So we obviously had to take some tough decisions with adjusting our budgets, considering that the revenue got almost zeroed in the course of a week. So we decided that ourselves personally did some sacrifices, because at the end of the day, if the business doesn't exist, there's nothing, no wages, there's nothing to be taken out of it. But we also agreed that we try to protect our team as much as possible, which is something that we're all very happy about, and we're going to try and push as much as possible. I think the last thing that I would add is the execution is something that we discussed as well, that having all these plans, etc., is nice, but it was very, very important, and this is still important for us to get used to the new reality of working from home, Skype calls, internet connections, noise. So that is something that is a learning curve. But I think after 2 or 3 weeks, I can say that we're all getting better. So that's our overall summary of how we're adapting.
Cool. Are there any questions from who's listening in? I don't think we have any on this one. Do any of the other guys on the call have questions for Andrew and Simon on this as to how they're adapting? Or
I mean,
no?
we covered everything perfectly, so.
Simon, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I just have a question. Obviously, I mean, the fact that your physical stores are closed means that you're focusing a lot more on online, or are you at all? Or are you sort of taking a step back a little bit and saying, okay, we're just going to see how things go?
I would say we don't have the answer yet. Obviously, an element of focus has shifted towards the online, but it's hard to say to what extent even the online figures have changed. So if, for example, you used to do 10 euros a month online, it might be that you're still doing 10 euros a month online, or maybe you're doing 15, but what we have discovered is that it's a different game. So it's hard for us to give answers about what that will look like, and we're still learning, really. I don't know what you think, Andrew.
I mean, the market showed us that it's not the time where just because the shop closed, everyone still is buying prints and souvenirs and gifts. I mean, it's the uncertainty goes through. I think for both brands it applies, the uncertainty. What I think was nice that we engaged in online was to actually tackle the problems we constantly avoided as a studio, to sort out the kind of voice we want to be online. So we knew that we were always testing the kind of content that we like and testing the kind of, now we're online, we don't have the physical shops to kind of worry about, because as Simon said, we have the deadlines, and we'll tackle that based on what's happening in the market, and we take the decisions. But now we have time online to experiment with the blog again, with, as Simon said, the collaboration that we're hoping we're going to launch soon with Malta type. It has been in the pipeline for like a year probably, you know, so this is nice that we're all stuck online, and it's like, all right, let's get creative on what we really can do now that we have less time to focus on the physical shops. So I think that actually, if we get it right, is going to be a very good thing that happened, you know, amongst all this chaos. And not having to stress about opening the new shop with a really tight deadline is actually something that was very unexpected this year. So we'll see how that goes.
I guess, yes, as you say, it's at this time, it's all about cultivating those relationships more than pushing sales. I mean, those will probably come naturally anyway, but it's more about reaching out to your clients and would-be clients in a more personal and human way. So less of a commercial push, because all of us are in the same situation right now. As you say, this uncertainty is sort of letting us, or leading us to not really spend, if anything, in food, perhaps, and toilet paper and other very necessary things in life. But you know, so I agree with what both you guys said about cultivating the relationship with clients online, digitally, and trying to reach out in less commercial ways. Any other questions?
Yeah, one quick question. How far does your plan go? How long did you stretch it out for?
We did 3, like we said. So we want to be ready, even if things are quicker than one might expect. But in general, I would say it's a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month period. And at every intersection, there's decisions to be made. So if by 3 months we don't see the signs of recovery, we go on plan C. If within 6 months, we even discussed, and this was something Andrew came up with, and I thought was really smart. What happens if we think there's a recovery going on, the recovery starts, and then we go back on lockdown? Because that is also an important factor, that you don't think that things are going back to normal, invest a lot of money thinking that you're going, finally things are back to normal, when we have no guarantee of when there's actually a long time period of stability, let's say.
I think, just to add on that quickly, I know we're always over our allocated time.
Yes, Andrew, we know that you love taking over the limelight, Simon, but
No, but I think one of the things that really helped us as a studio was to understand that certain things are going to change. How and what, we don't have the answer, but hoping that by the end of when we can go out again or at restaurants again, everything is just going to be where we left off. I think it would be a missed opportunity, because I think there's things that we do all as creatives, ideas that we had that we never got to do them. So even if we can't do anything that what we used to do before when the shops were open, our 40 hours of work or 50 hours of work a week, we can still do things which are maybe more creative or maybe less bound to our usual commercial work, you know. So I think as soon as we discovered that that should be our focus, everything started falling into place with the initiatives, which how we look at the new shop. Even if retail or tourism don't pick up, you know, the shop needed to make sense anyway. And we made sure before we take the decision for the new shop, what will happen if we have a year of no tourism and no retail experience? Can we still use that investment? And just because we were thinking creatively, we were like, yes, we can use it for this and actually get the best out of it anyway, you know? So we're like, all right.
It was almost liberating, I remember. At one point, once the technicalities and details and planning was over, and we realized that we can get creative with our time and how best to use it. It was in a way liberating.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thanks for your feedback. We're going to roll on to the second question of the conversation, which we're going to hand over to Gioia and to Sergio. So the question for you guys is, What three tips do you have, or would you recommend to other creatives locally to stay inspired? Obviously, at the moment, everything you read online is far from inspiring. And as Andrew and Simon were saying earlier, I mean, shops are closed, so we can't, express our creativity through the retail scene. But I mean, how are you staying inspired as creatives? Maybe Gioia, do you want to start off?
Yeah, well, I have to say that after the first shock, of course, like Andrew and Simon, we had a couple of days of, oh my God, how are we going to survive? Even if we knew it was arriving, because I think everyone in the world knew it was arriving gradually. But anyway, when it hits, you feel a bit shocked. We did almost the same things the fit-Tazza did, of course, not so methodically and in a bit more confused way, I would say, but we had to find our path, to define a sort of a path for the future months. On a personal level, after doing this, which I think it's something that gives you a sort of a frame in which you feel you're still in. So I think it helps doing this as a first step. But our main problem was to stay focused, to keep the focus on our creativity, because of course you feel that everything is changing, you are worried, you feel that you can postpone. I mean, you're not selling, not performing, not exhibiting in any field of creative works. And so you think, well, I can check the news, I can do a call, a phone call, a video call, when maybe I check the news again. And of course, all the emotions regarding this situation overflow. So my tip is just something I discovered by chance. It's a first simple thing I found useful for me. We had a catalog of a beautiful museum in the Netherlands just outside on the table. We're not so tidy. And so one morning I picked it up and said, oh, let's have a look. And I discovered that even with a quick look, maybe 2 or 3 pictures, reading a couple of things about the pieces, well, it helped me. And I have decided to do it every morning as a very small routine, but in some way, I think that, of course, anyone can find his or her tool in this field, but it helped me remind what I am, what I like to do, what I love, what I want to do. The second thing I would advise is to try to be grounded and realistic, which of course means being informed, even if it's even if you are afraid of knowing what's going on, and realistic about the future. But it's not enough. It's very important to be in contact with, to be aware of what's inside. I mean, as creatives, what happens inside is very important. I think we are the tools, the first tools we have, and so our emotions can be so different, and recognizing that we are afraid, that we are maybe surprised, curious, confused, excited, such a wide range of emotions. If you recognize them, even the less pleasurable of them, it really helps. And the third thing is that we have to remind we are building the future. This can seem a stupid sentence. Of course, we build the future. Every second we build the future. But I think that this is such a unique occasion with so many people sitting there. Of course, there are people who are quite busy with kids and schools and other things. But in some way, part of us, even emotionally or mentally, we're sitting there and thinking, oh my God, what will it be? Because we all know that it will not be exactly as it was. And so this is a wonderful opportunity of thinking and building consciously the future. I mean, I'm not saying that everything will go well. I think that many of us will have to probably face hard times, difficulties, economical problems. I'm not sure that all of us will be able to go on with the activity, the creative thing he or she is doing, but it's things can change in such an interesting way. I mean, it can be interesting to think of the future and trying to discover what's coming. There can be so many new opportunities of creativity of new things, that it's a pity to lose them.
Agreed. I mean, oops, sorry, I interrupted. I thought you were ending on a chilled note.
No, I think it's what she's saying is absolutely right, though. It's like it is a moment of opportunity, you know.
100%, 100%. I mean, yes, as Gioia was saying, there are going to be hardships, but definitely there's a lot of space for opportunity to shine through. Sergio, do you want to add your 2 cents worth on the 3 tips that you are?
Yeah, I mean, they're more or less similar to what Gioia said, but maybe from a more personal point of view. I mean, I've been trying to sort of, you know, change a little bit the way I live for quite a while. I've tried to slow down my life. I've tried to do different things and so on. And in a sense, that has kind of served me well in that regard. From the sense of how things happen. It doesn't mean that it has not affected me. It's affected everyone. But from my point of view, I have tried again to take the opportunity to do the things that maybe I was too busy or too distracted to do before. I think that in a lot of cases, most of the things that we had in our lives were very many distractions, and a lot of those distractions have tended to melt away a little bit. So in a sense, maybe we are in a place where we can even be more focused. We can be more more creative. I mean, from my point of view, I think that sort of what I do is I try to do something every day. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to create something new every day, but something that inspires me. Read a book, maybe even watch a movie. These things can trigger inspirations, and we can find inspiration from different places, and I think that by keeping ourselves, getting into this routine of sort of looking for inspiration, as I said, in a book here, on the couch, in the art of other people, in what other people are saying, from our friends that we speak to. All these are sources of inspiration, and I have realized that it has, in a way, awoken something, so I feel more inspired at this time. Also, I think that this is a very good opportunity to look inwards. We spend a lot of time looking outwards. We spend a lot of time looking at what's around us. What do I have to do here? What do I have to do here? And we have tended to, I think, in a lot of cases, ignore ourselves, ignore what's going on inside us, and that is, at least for me, one of my greatest sources of inspiration. The ability to look inwards, to delve deeply, to try and understand, how we are feeling, what is going on, and use that to essentially put that into our arts. I always say that for me, at least, arts is therapy. I use art a lot to sort of explore myself and externalize that, and that way I can maybe get rid of some things, or at least face them. And I feel that this is a good time to really dig deep and use our art, our creativity, to reach points that maybe there was too much noise around us before to reach. And finally, I always think about experimentation. And again, this comes from the way, we've been living our life. We've been living a very fast-paced life, jumping from one thing to the next, touching the surface of everything, and I think that it has, in a way, maybe stopped us from challenging the boundaries, from literally trying to push the boundaries, to experiment, to grow. We are all right now outside of our comfort zone. I mean, that's a given. And we know that when we are outside of our comfort zone, that is when the greatest things happen. So I think that if we can actually, turn that around and sort of say, okay, maybe I'm not choosing to be outside of my comfort zone, but I am. I mean, it happened. So try to use that fact to grow, to explore new avenues. I'm kind of trying new things, experimenting. I'm sort of trying to even like do things that I never thought I had the time, or I sort of kind of always pushed aside because maybe I was too afraid to do them. And in a sense, sort of, I feel that now sort of you know, things are you know, in a pretty awkward situation already. So might as well sort of try and do these things anyway. You know, I mean, sort of what could go wrong.
Definitely. No, I think what you said there about using this as an opportunity to look inwards, but also doing things you wouldn't ordinarily do because we were so distracted by the everyday, and being given this chance to reach out with other creatives across the island, and not only to cultivate this the sense of community. It's a little bit what we've tried to do with this talk here today, and to sort of to instill the sense of don't be afraid to reach out to someone who you wouldn't ordinarily have reached out. I know the fit-Tazza, for example, promoted the work of Zach Ritchie a couple of days ago when they launched their coloring book, and they cross-linked to his page and to what he's been doing. So I thought that was a really, you know, and it's not just that, I mean, that's just one example that comes to mind right now, but it's great to see the community really sort of doing things that ordinarily they wouldn't have maybe done before, just because we were still caught up in our own thing. So I agree with you, Sergio, on using the time to do things you wouldn't ordinarily do, especially cultivating a sense of creative community. Just before, because we have just about maybe 10-15 minutes left before we wrap up, wanted to take the last question over to Patty and Steve and Carla, who've been sitting there. We've saved the best for last. And the question to you guys is, how do you think creatives and creative businesses, not just businesses, but creatives in general, are going to evolve over the next couple of months, both on the island and internationally? So how do you see the creative scene, you know, how do you think it's going to evolve and shift as we go through the next couple of weeks, months? I'm not going to say years because I think Simon's going to start crying. So.
Agreed.
So, I mean, the most obvious way to start would be for businesses to switch to online portals, like the fit-Tazza mentioned, to develop sort of digital communication and adapt the way you do things. So that's kind of the first and most obvious thing that would happen. Then you start to look inside and start to become possibly more frugal, more streamlined. So you start to look at your equipment, your resources, your processes, and how you can eliminate the non-essential items. So to try and make it as effective as possible without wasting anything. So it applies on a different level to everyone. So it could be limiting on your workspace, maybe on your size, or on the number of, on the size of the team, or on the effort involved to getting to the end result. And then there are some beautiful things in this time too. So if you look at the fact that there's less pressure because maybe there's less work, so that allows you to invest kind of in new things. So as fit-Tazza mentioned, you could be investing in new collaborations, or investing in projects which you've shelved for a while, investing in your portfolio, investing in your skill set. So kind of taking the time, due to the fact that maybe you have less pressure, less deadlines, to sort of be more creative. So those are kind of the first sort of reactions.
And I think up to now the discussion has been quite based on how creative businesses are going to tackle the situation from an insular perspective.
From a what? Sorry, didn't catch that. Can you say that again?
From an insular perspective, so looking within the business and trying to figure out what policies can be adopted inside the business to tackle the current situation. But perhaps one interesting dynamic can be to look outward and to look at how we can help the local creative community. Because in a situation like this, where there is a crisis already, I think it is important to collaborate with other creatives rather than compete with them. So, for example, just recently, we also have been seeing some creatives coming up with interesting proposals. To mention one, for example, I saw that Seth Campidoulou has initiated this artist support pledge, where basically artists are invited to sell basically up to, I think, 5 works it was, for an approximate value of around €200, and whereby when they actually do sell these works, they pledge to buy an artwork that belongs to another local creator. And I think these are the kind of proposals that we need at a time like this. Besides that, I also think that in a sense, creative businesses also have a duty to help innovate and propose solutions that could even directly help the current situation. For example, again, internationally we're seeing big businesses like Big in Denmark who are designing face masks, face screens basically, and using their 3D farms to manufacture them. We're also seeing other companies collaborate together to, again, design medical face masks, ventilators, and even prefabricated hospitals. So I think this is all very positive, because it's only at times like these that you see such a quick and effective collaboration happening between very big businesses and where there's so much potential. Besides that, I also think that it's not just about creating an innovative product. I think it's in everyone's interest that we kind of try and find a way of living in the situation. So it's not just about working remotely or trying to find out. I mean, some jobs are actually quite hands-on, so it's not always possible to do everything remotely. Now, once maybe perhaps we reach this peak and things start to get to normal, I think businesses need to find a way of slowly adopting measures that abide to obviously social distancing and other sanitary precautions which need to be taken, whereby perhaps certain businesses can come up with solutions, propose innovative solutions to start work slowly.
And obviously each business is affected in a different way, and each business will find its own solution. So there's not like a one size fits all answer to this. Everyone needs to adapt in their own way. But sort of one thing which we were looking at from an architecture point of view is obviously we depend on several other people to fulfill our dreams. So when we've designed something, we can't put it together ourselves. But one thing which perhaps is interesting for us to look into is something like prefab architecture, where we look into the element of robotics, of sort of breaking a building down into a number of elements which can be maybe put together without the need of humans interacting with each other. Maybe there are humans controlling the robots from somewhere else. So then there's the element of social distancing. Obviously, you don't want to end up with a situation where every building looks the same, but maybe an amount of prefabricated modules which you compose together in different ways, then that could be something interesting. There's also the idea of looking at drones for us not to have to go on site and maybe send the drone on site. And, you know, we're trying to look into different processes, which if this really does take a while, we could kind of adapt.
According to Sergio, it's going to take 48 weeks, right, Sergio?
So I think just another.
I plead the fifth.
I can't wait to see drones on Maltese construction sites.
We don't mean it will work. It might.
I think we would normally be the last people proposing these things, but And
Yeah.
desperate times call for desperate measures,
Yeah.
I guess.
I think the thing which is us hardest is the fact that we never signed up to an office job. So we always wanted to be outside. We wanted to be meeting people. We wanted to be learning from different craftsmen. So this is quite a challenging time. So, I mean, it affects everyone in different ways, but obviously we need to get away from the negative and start to adapt to what it is. So
Eventually,
most
you're
important is, yeah?
eventually you're still gonna keep doing what you love doing, right?
Yeah,
It's not like
exactly. Yes, you
even
can't
if
take
it's
that
gonna
away.
take longer than it usually takes. What we like and what we refuse to settle for is still gonna be there. So it's just, I really like what you guys said, combined with what Sergio said in terms of being outside your comfort zone. I think now we ended up with exploring what we can do, but at the same time, all of us are outside our comfort zone. You
Yeah.
know, like, I would have taught it over and over and over again before I jump in on a webinar talk while being streamed live. You know, it's like all of a sudden it's just like Rosella asks you, it's like, yeah, okay, everyone is doing it, let's go for it. You know, and it's just like happy, which is sometimes it's just crazy what would be holding you back without even knowing. You know, so I
Yeah.
think it's going to give us big opportunity in the long run.
Everything falls into perspective.
Also, like the power of habit, like suddenly all our daily habits got broken. So we need to find ourselves again in a certain way. And that can be positive.
Yeah, I think if you kind of sit back and understand your brand identity and who you are and why you're doing this and like the purpose of what you're doing, you can reinvent the way you work. It's just a matter of staying true to your principles. So making sure the brand identity is strong enough to take you through to a new era.
Yeah,
I think,
I
like you
totally
said,
agree. Like,
sorry, you go, Andrea.
Carla, you want to take over the question? It's you've been
Well,
sitting
I
there
just wanted
reflecting.
I just wanted to say, like, the idea of adapting, like Patty mentioned, we can really get caught up in the negatives right now. Everyone's business is going through negative times, whether, I mean, for me, it's production being stuck, you know, new prints being stuck in Italy, possibly missing a season. Everyone has these negatives going on. But I'm in a headspace where I feel like there is a lot of room for growth and positivity with our businesses locally and businesses abroad. And we're going to gain more creatively by really working on those positives. I mean, the negatives will inspire innovation, hopefully, but thinking too negatively right now is only going to give us a creative block. And everyone in the whole world pretty much is in the same situation. So let's keep that in mind when we do stress out, because we're all going to have to find a way to get out of this together by sharing these positive ways, positive stories on how we're facing that. I think that this time is a really good time to keep your brand stories alive. If you haven't had time to do that, there are, through online, you know, maybe you don't want to do an e-commerce shop right now, but you can have a powerful Instagram page, a powerful blog, just to really get your story out there. How are you producing? What sort of products are you producing? What's the process of doing that? Who are you working to do that with? I feel that when this is slowly going to end, the novelty of travel will still be, there will be a novelty, you know, with travelers. We're not going to be traveling as much as we were, even when our local scene starts to adapt. So having that digital story for people to follow is going to be really exciting, I think, and really engaging for people outside of our countries. I think it's also an opportunity to nurture our skills. Things have been so fast that maybe we were kind of good at taking photos or kind of good at illustrating. So why don't you nurture that right now? So if your business is too broke to have a full-blown campaign in a few months, you can maybe work on it within your in-house team. I'm not saying don't collaborate anymore, but to be honest, certain collaborations might be harder than they were before. So if you do have a skill that you've kind of been good at, why not try to perfect it right now? Maybe it's a writing skill, so your content can be enriched through your social media, like take a creative writing course online at the moment. I'm quite excited that hopefully this means that communication with production teams can be more powerful. You know, having the slower flow of things means that factories have time to chat. Like our factories that we work with in Italy, this week we've just been exchanging stories and talking about projects we hope to work on and sharing podcasts. We've never had this relationship ever. It's always been strictly business, super fast production times, just talking, you know, about money, invoices, and very boring things. And now it's just become really human, and I'm really excited about that, and people just knowing each other's names more than they did before. And I think that for me that has been really inspiring and motivating to keep the brand going in these times. I also, something that Patty also mentioned, I think recycling, not just the space, but even recycling products, it's quite a cool time to bring that back. I mean, if my stock never arrives or my prints never arrive, I will definitely be revamping some fabric roses I have, or some stock that maybe I haven't sold, just changing it around. Like, why not help the environment even further by not wasting products right now, and giving things a second chance at being loved. I know it's not the easiest time to be a consumer or sell a product, but I do think that it doesn't need to die out totally. There is going to be a week where we want something to make us feel better if we're stuck at home for too long, and I don't think we should feel too guilty about those little pleasures, especially since it's been around us for all our lives, to totally cut off. You know, maybe treating yourself to even some extra nice bottle of wine or a nice little product. I think we'll just appreciate it more than we did before if it's not so fast-paced and mass-consumed.
If you're spending more time at home, now is the time to invest in a fit-Tazza print, because you're going to be looking at it for longer.
Why not? Maybe decorate your whole room.
Okay, you get your commission later.
Did you pay Patty to say that? Admit it.
No, you can lie in the bath in your Carla Grima swimwear.
We'll talk about commissions later, okay?
No, but actually, Carla, I really like what you said. I like what you said there, and I think we all need to think a little bit less about, oh my gosh, I'm not making any money, and actually using this as a kind of way to tap into other things that aren't, you know, which can inspire creativity and sort of, as we were saying earlier about shifting our creative mindset, and to move away from this, oh, I have to keep doing this to produce, to make money. It's more about, let's just do this because I enjoy it. And rediscovering the human touch, as Carla was saying as well, with friends and family, and just the wider community overall. I think now is the time, and as Carla was saying, it's such a unique time. I mean, I don't think I've ever lived through anything like this before. The whole planet is essentially in the same boat, and we're all feeling it. We're all sort of stopping, so why not indulge in doing those things that we always felt guilty about doing before, because we thought it was more important to produce and to, you know, issue invoices and to collect payment and all of that, which, yes, okay, is what keeps the world going for now, but there are many other things too which are as important, if not more so. So I definitely agree with Carla.
What I heard from Carla was mostly drink wine, but okay.
Yes.
I've definitely been maybe coming too much in the evenings compared to just to let go of that extra pressure.
I'm conscious that we have about 5 minutes before we wrap up. So we have a couple of questions. One question that's come through from Becky. We were talking earlier about collaboration, and she's asking, when you collaborate, how do you learn how to trust?
Ooh,
And errors.
Can I?
What?
Go for it.
Trial
Simon.
and errors.
Trial and error.
I would say make sure that it's a win-win, because that way you can be, if you're feeling awkward about a collaboration, probably something is wrong, because either you are taking too much out of it or the other party is. If you're both winning, it's easy. Also, I would say being transparent about these things. So like just today, I had a call about a collaboration, and we literally spoke out saying, hey, I'm getting this out of this, you're getting this, we're both happy. And that way, once you set up that kind of parameters, everything is easy and about creating the best thing possible.
I think, Simon, as well, is choose if you're starting off with these kinds of collaborations and it's the beginning and you're still finding out how your process works with collaborators, start with people who are already in your circle and grow organically. Doesn't make sense to go find someone that is totally different, that on the other spectrum, when you probably have people with very similar skills very close to you as well. So build that process like we do it organically around us, you know. It's like we got to a point we're looking at collaborating with Malta type because we have that kind of relationship with Matthew and it grew organically that now it makes sense to do it, you know. So don't rush. Because the win-win might not be clear at that point as well.
But there's also a big need for honesty on both parties, because it can very quickly go wrong.
I completely agree with what Andrew was saying, but I think on the topic of transparency, even if you do trust someone blindly because it's a very good relationship, I think it's very important to have a proper contract in place in any case.
Yeah.
That is fundamental.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
For sure. But if everyone is transparent and honest, the contract becomes just a formality.
Yeah.
At the contract stage is where you realize all the problems that happened beforehand or that were not discussed.
Yeah.
And I think the best decision you can take is actually to have a feeling that this is not a collaboration for you and not do it. If you have a bad feeling about something and you do it, problems on you, you know. Like you can't say they're not, they couldn't be trusted or they cheated me, you know. Like if you didn't safeguard and be as transparent as possible from the start, or the first signals that this is not gonna end well, you pull out. I mean, it's very important to take the tough decision. It's very important.
I agree, and I think one of the comments we got from someone who's watching is also, it has a lot to do with intuition. So going into what Andrew's saying, if your gut is telling you no, then it's a no, no matter how good it looks on paper. I mean, these are just things you can't really explain or, you know, give a mathematical equation for. It's really about, there has to be a synergy between the two, or the two creatives, or if it's more than two, but I mean, there has to be this kind of energetic feeling, I guess, when you're collaborating with someone. And also the values, I think, have to align. I mean, the values are the things that I think should make you, ultimately you decide whether to go ahead with the collaboration over and beyond whether it's going to make you money, for example, if it's a commercial collaboration. It definitely has to be about alignment of values. very quickly, we have someone who would like to join in and ask a question. So Natalie, if you can hear us, we're going to just add you into the conversation. Can you hear us, Natalie?
She's muted.
She's muted.
Technology is fine. Can you hear us, Natalie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I enjoyed this group off and on because the technology is a little bit new to me. I'm a 68-year-old. I know Sergio very well. And,
Hello.
hi, Serge. And I decided to join because I felt that this creative couch was about being creative. Granted, I joined in and out because I couldn't really find a way around the technology besides the fact that I got some private messages coming through and I lost you for a couple of times. The girl in the white sweater, which says Malta Creative Collection, I like your latest comments. So what I'm coming to is this. Allow me for saying what I'm saying because I only joined in and out. And as soon as I joined in, you were all talking about the financial situation that each and every one of you has. Well, I'm a 68-year-old. I'm on a pension, but I plus that pension so that I can live a bit comfortably. I do other things, and those other things have gone down the drain now. Like a lot of other people who have income from wherever, you know, we're all having to give up that financial income. And therefore, in coming years, I'm 68, in coming years, if I get to live through this, I don't know if I will get to enjoy the fruits of what I'm hoping to enjoy. But what I'm coming to is this. First and foremost, the word couch, to me, in my head associates with couch potato, right? And the word couch, again, means you're sitting back and not doing much, but you're just like sitting back and either watching television or killing time or...
To be fair, I am on the couch, Natalie.
Yes. If I may, because I'm sure you are limited for time, if I may, I was hoping that this session would be creative, and creative to extend that creativity, to extend your creative talents to the community. Because at the moment, with this scourge that we are going through, that is what is needed from each and every one of us, not to see where our next finances are coming from. True, we all have to live, we all have to survive, we all need money to buy our food, but how about extending our creativity towards the community, towards those parents who have children at home and they don't know what to do with them.
So Natalie, what's the question in general? Sort of what is it a comment, or do you have a specific question?
No, I don't have a specific question. Well, the specific question is, where does the creativity of this couch come in? Because I have not created. I'm sorry, with all due respect,
Natalie,
Sergio might know, I have not heard from the ins and outs that I've been on this chat. I have not heard any creativity. I've heard a lot of moaning, and to be honest with you, from this side of the screen, I see a lot of long faces.
No.
If I can answer. Hi, Natalie. I've been following you, and I know that you know, like for everyone, this is very hard. What we're trying to do in this session is not necessarily you know, give creativity to others. I mean, that is something that I think that all of us are doing in our own way. I mean, I know I'm doing it, and I see that everyone here this panel is doing it in their own way. We as artists and as creatives, I think that we all feel a very strong, how can you say, a very strong need or a very strong obligation towards the community to support the society throughout this time. One thing that we were talking about before was, you know, how we have all noticed that creativity and art and all forms of art have, you know, literally jumped up to a new level during this time, and we are all very aware of it, because the products of creativity and the products of art are essentially the main point of entertainment for many people, you know, when they are closed at home. And I think that we all feel that we have this obligation, and we are all doing this in our own way. A big part of the conversation, I don't know if you picked up on on the part of the conversation that I'm talking about. Essentially, we talked a lot about how we think or how we are approaching this from our own creative point of view, not necessarily financially. Yes, we spoke about it from a financial point of view, because a lot of us actually live on creative arts, but there's also a big part of the discussion that is about how we can use this time to make our creativity better, and how we suggest how we are using our time, how we are using this time to explore our creativity in different ways. And hopefully this can help other creatives to do the same. I mean, we're not, you know, all knowing, perfect beings. We're in this all together. But I think that the thing that we can do, and the thing that maybe we're trying to do, is to essentially support everyone that is out there in different ways, either through our own creativity, or by sharing our experiences as to how we are tackling the situation.
Okay, fair enough.
I totally agree with Sergio.
I think you are very unfortunate with timing as well, Natalie, because you got to the boring part first. It was me and Andrew talking about finance and how we manage that true stuff. And then the moment where you got the interesting part with Gioia and everyone else, I think that was the more creative aspect. I would say that I think you recognize this as well, to be fair, but I think that there was that question also because it is very important for the creative world to survive this, because without surviving through this period, even from a financial point of view, there will be a worse future, so to say. And also it's important because I know some of the people in this panel, including ourselves, even though we're creatives and in the creative world, there are certain amazingly hard decisions that we had to take with regards to people who work with us, for example. And it's really nice. I mean, I can speak personally. It was really nice when we came here to chat about it, and we could share our experiences, and we could understand that, hey, we're not alone in this, there's a way out, etc. And even though it's not creative, for sure, I mean, even creative businesses and creative studios have to go through it, and it's nice to share, in my opinion.
Let me tell you something. Creativity in this situation, it's every corner in our life. I am creative in the sense of I do a little bit of photography. I am creative in the way I dress. I am creative in what I do with my life. But what I have found out is I am being very creative with my stock of food because I'm 68 years old. I am in self-isolation. I don't have much help, and I'm making the most of the few things that I have in my fridge and my store cupboard. And I am amazing myself and being and very proud of myself and how I'm being creative in that respect. Now, what I wanted out of this was creativity for possibly the art sense, because I relate to Sergio and his photography, and I have an interest in photography. But also, as I said, I would like to see an extension of creativity in the sense of supporting children who are at home and mothers who are having to deal with those children and finding something to do with their time.
Definitely. Yes, I agree with you 100%. I think there could be food for thought for another session. The first one we kicked off. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Maybe as well, something which we didn't mention here. We actually did some coloring books, and there's a lot of artists. I can mention Stephanie Borch, Zach Ritchie, us,
Definitely.
We all released coloring books, and we're incentivizing people to do them together. So there are a lot of activities out there, and a lot of artists are getting together to kind of connect with the community. So out there are definitely things. This session, I don't think we touched on many of those because it was more about sharing our struggles with getting in the chaos. But
These comments are amazing for us to have another episode.
Yeah. Oh my God, Sergio, I love your dog. I'm missing. I had to send mine to my niece because I can't take her out. But I look forward to another session, and maybe I misunderstood the creative couch concept, possibly. But it was I've enjoyed this because it's also given me a little bit of creativity in my isolation. Thank you. Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, talking about creativity, I don't know if any of you watched Rai Uno last night where it said musica unice. Oh my God, that was creative. And that was creativity. I tell you, I cried because I thought the creativity there was incredible. I don't know if it's available on YouTube, but
maybe you could send a link on the Facebook page that you've commented on, and we can all check it out and share.
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Thanks for your question, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so we're a little bit over time, and apologies to those who've been watching to take over a little bit of your evening, and just going to wrap this up. This will be available on, we'll be sending a link out to anyone who wants the recording of this, and please let us know if you enjoyed this conversation, and if you'd like for something like this to happen again. I think we've answered all the questions. If we haven't, please let us know through Facebook or email us, and we'll answer them publicly on the Facebook page.
If I may suggest, if you have suggestions for other topics or other questions and so on, just send them into our Facebook page, and we will use them to build up future sessions.
Yes, I think Olivia has a few suggestions there as well, so we're going to see.
Like, this is cutting into my bath time.
But I just want to say a big thanks to all of you guys for having made this happen. And Olivia, enjoy your bath time, and we'll catch up very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, guys, before this situation gets out of hand. Really nice chat.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.